All right, everybody. Why don't we get started? Welcome to the 2021 Azure HPC Partner Bootcamp. This is actually our second annual HPC and AI Partner Bootcamp. It's our first, actually, that we've gone virtual. With everything going on in the world, we were able actually to get together as a group last year and hope to have done it this year, but unfortunately, we're here, fortunately or unfortunately, I guess the way you look at it, we're here virtually. And so I am Mark Eastman. I'm going to be your host today for the next 3 days, actually. And officially, I am part of the Azure HPC Worldwide Global Black Belt team. And you're going to hear Global Black Belt and GBB quite often as we go through there, as I've solicited a lot of my team to kind of help me piece all this together. So before we really jump into the content, I do want to kind of take everybody through a little bit of the agenda for the next couple days, kind of do some logistics, make sure everybody's registered, those kinds of things, and then obviously we can really jump into things. So if I can page down. All right, so just quickly going through the agenda again. We'll be here for the next 3 days. It's key, and I kind of want to make sure I get this highlighted. You need to be registered for all 3 days. So if you went in registered for today, that didn't automatically make you registered for tomorrow or Thursday's session. And guess in the case of Europe, it would be Friday's session. So from that standpoint, just make sure as you go through that you did register for all the 3 days. Obviously, we have a very full agenda. Today's is really about strategy and kind of where we're headed as an organization, where we want you as our key partner involved, and where we can help you, how you can help us. It's a lot of sharing of different ideas and thoughts and strategies. And so we'll go through some of that in detail. We're going to finish up with our friends from AMD, giving us a little bit of an overview of what they're up to as part of our partner showcase. As we head into tomorrow, we're going to focus a little bit more on kind of what I call the products, specific products. We're going to have folks from our product management and engineering groups really coming in and giving us a deep dive in some of the efforts that they have going on within the compute hardware, storage, from the efforts on the software, compute software front, and then also spend some time on tuning. We all know that you can pick your different infrastructure, piece it all together, but it may not be optimal unless you kind of go through a little bit of exercises, which John's going to kind of take you through to kind of help tune. And so that should provide a lot of insight that will ultimately really help your customers get the maximum experience out of what we're doing. And then we'll finish up tomorrow with our friends from NVIDIA. As we look to day 3, again, for the Asia folks, that'll be Friday. It will be focused really on how to scale the deployments. We have our fast track team kind of coming in. Mike Warrington is going to give you a little bit of insight on kind of how you can, along with your customers, really scale those different deployments and get those really solutions not only up and optimal from a performance standpoint, but also scaling to their needs as they grow with those, whatever their efforts may be. We'll let Kevin Raines talk a little bit about product marketing, some of the big events that we have coming up. We want partners. We try to make a conscious effort to make sure partners are all a part of our marketing efforts, and whether it be different events or what that may be. We'll finish up. We've asked Tim Carroll to kind of provide a little bit of an industry overview. Tim's a unique individual. He's been around HPC. If you haven't met him, certainly you'll get a good dose of him on Friday. But a great opportunity for Tim to take you through the different industries where we're strategically focused, where those industries are headed, and obviously where we'd like partners to be focused as well as we collectively focus in on these particular workflows. And then last but certainly not least, we're going to let our friends at Intel kind of finish up with the partner showcase on Friday. Again, just I want to emphasize, if you haven't registered for all 3 days, go to the link at the bottom of the screen here and make sure you get registered for those next couple days. Little bit of logistics on the Q&A and on demand. We are coming to you live which is the good news. It does come with a little bit of challenge from the standpoint that you as the audience won't be able to participate in a live Q&A. So what we have, if you look at the top right of the screen, you'll see a Q&A panel. You can click on that. You can ask your questions. We've got moderators and folks that will be watching that all day long, and will allow us to respond directly, or if needed, we can even kind of try and roll it into the conversation a little bit. Couple other key points. These sessions will be available on demand. There is a link that you received as part of your registration email. You need to give it, we are thinking, about 72 hours before you're able to kind of get access to that. But if you want to go back and review, or maybe you missed a particular one of the sessions, you can go back and view that at a later time. We also will make the presentations available. We have a link here. Again, it's probably going to take a few hours for that stuff to be up and available. But again, it's our intent to kind of provide the deck. So again, you can go back and review, or if you didn't get a chance to view it live, take a look at the material. Last but not least on this slide, if you have any questions, any inquiries, please don't hesitate to send an email to hpcpartnerevents@microsoft.com. That HPC partner events is all lowercase, all one word, and we've got some folks that could respond to that. Okay. So at this point, I'm hoping Mary has joined us. Mary out there on the call?
Here. I'm waving.
Yay, wonderful. Thanks, Mary. So let me introduce Mary. Mary is we're lucky to have her. We got her, she's about 2 years into Microsoft, so at last year's event she was pretty new, but she did a fantastic job. I'm guessing that after a year now she's going to be fantastic. She's well-versed, and she's going to provide a wonderful welcome and a little bit of an overview of kind of where we as an organization are kind of headed strategically and some of the great things that we're doing. Like I said, Mary's been with us for about 2 years, and prior to that she was in data center sales and marketing at Intel for almost 20 years. So a very, very deep background in HPC and AI. And so again, we're just lucky to have her. And with that, Mary, I think I'll just hand it over to you, and you can give everybody a warm welcome, and then we're going to move on with Nidhi and Tim Carroll.
Great, thanks, Mark, and thanks everyone virtually for being here in our second inaugural event. We look forward to doing these more and more in the future, and maybe one day back in Redmond or wherever it may be. Mark's right. When I was here a year ago, I was in my, I'd say, freshman year, first year at Microsoft, still figuring things out, but I was really excited to work with a lot of you, our HPC partners, because I had started to see this transformation in a fairly stable legacy market of HPC starting to tip towards the cloud. Nidhi and I joined around the same time and shared that passion of seeing the future, and had a lot of early ideas of how to energize the team here, support the team, get accelerates the roadmap capabilities. And I'm really pleased with the progress that we've made on all those fronts in the last year. For me, one of the things I really enjoy, and it's been a little bit easier since, I've been remote through the last year, staying home, working from my home office with COVID. I still get to meet a ton of customers, and I do have a little bit of bias towards HPC customers, that I love being on calls with our customers who are thinking about a traditional on-prem HPC workload and how to conceptualize moving it to the cloud. But in a lot of cases, the conversations I have are, we know this is the right thing to go do. We need to then bring our colleagues along to make sure that they know that this is the right, real new normal in the market. And so I've had a lot of conversations with HPC customers, and in particular EDA, because of my history at Intel. And so I've seen the power of bringing partners, HPC partners, to the table, and Ansys comes to mind in that space. And not only is it bringing the customer along, but I feel like there's a ton of new value in partners who can then bring value from on-prem to cloud, but then all of these new use cases in the sense of simulation. You have things like autonomous vehicles, which are a new opportunity, 5G planning in large territories or small cities. You've got AI, ML, digital twins. So the foundation for the business is really strong as it moves to cloud, but the opportunity is massive. Mark and I were talking, and I said I've got like just a lot of, looking back and taking this pause moment over the last year. 3 things stand out for me in HPC that I've learned and been a bit surprised by, and have to do, I think, with this environment during COVID-19. I would think maybe a year or 2 ago, if you asked me, does HPC as a market move quickly, I would have said no. These are very thoughtful, deep analysis before an IT leader would buy a system design, and then would make sure that system was very good bet for many, many generations of whatever workload they were running. And so I think that mentality, as I saw it in cloud analysis, was pretty slow. It was, let's test, let's analyze, let's make sure all of our ducks are in a row, and then move fairly slowly to cloud. So in my mind, one of those engagements is, a year, many, many months. But then, when we're seeing HPC scenarios move in hours and days, Duke University, you may have seen some of our outward discussions of this, they moved in 36 hours. The Duke University Ventilator splitting project, was our partnership to look at, how to effectively use limited resource of ventilators in hospitals during COVID-19. And what the Duke team said would have taken months to do. Together, we sat down and had 3 days after initial kickoff of doing the work scope. We got the initial work done, and 800,000 hours of compute time were logged in 36 hours following that. So to me, that's one story of probably half a dozen or more that are just top of mind for me. With COVID, with life sciences scenarios, you're seeing the speed. And I don't know if it's the technology that's changed it, or the mentality of people who are realizing how to use this tool of cloud differently than they would have in on-prem, which would have taken a long time to order systems and test and all those good things. The second thing I've seen, and Nina and I have talked about just recently, is that in general, even before cloud, HPC conversations inside of IT environments were like this group of people who knows that thing, the HPC team. Go talk to them about HPC decisions. And then the rest of IT, the mainstream IT, was like over here. I'd say again in the last year or so, I see things changing, where instead of saying, hey, the HPC team is looking at cloud transformation, can you go talk to them? There's a bigger set of cloud transformation and digital transformation aspirations for companies who are moving faster in the cloud post-COVID than they were pre-COVID. And then that HPC asset, whatever that is whether you're defining the core IP to design your car, or your manufacturing environment, or your oil and gas simulation, whatever that is that's core to your business. Now IT's looking at that as the linchpin for the decision. If this piece can go to the cloud, then we're bringing everything else along with it. And so it's almost flipping the HPC conversation into the mainstream conversation of change and value, which I think is fantastic, and I think it frees up space for a lot of us to go in and say, of course you have to move to the cloud, your company's moving to the cloud, and this is how this linchpin gets you there quicker. And then I think the third thing that struck out to me is now we're seeing kind of the vision across ahead of the horizon. So not only we're bringing customers in new ways onto the cloud or doing things a little bit faster. Now we're seeing this ridiculous innovation like the space station, and just a couple of days ago on the 20th of February, NASA is launching a resupply mission to the International Space Station, and on that will be an 8-node HPE supercomputer. And so that compute platform is the edge, right? And the edge is now going out into space. And when the compute platform is enabled with the capability to use a satellite link to burst down, which cracks me up, down to the cloud, down to Azure, for workflows that exceed the capability on board. And so, I'm just super excited about these types of what I think of as ridiculous innovation in our space, and I'm excited to hear what's coming next. So what I'll leave you all with, I'm excited for you to be with us for the next 3 days. We'll talk not just about the technologies, but also the go-to-market and how we partner together. So please use the chat, give us feedback. We're here to listen. We're here to adjust, learn, and hear what you're seeing in the market from your customers as well. How can we help you think differently? How can we help you and the people around you and your customers move in days and weeks and not months and years? How can you help HPC become part of the mainstream and core to the migration and digital transformation motions with the companies that you work with? So I'll leave you with those questions. Mark, I will leave you the microphone back and your able hands. And off to Tim and Needy and others who are here to really go and kick this off with a bang.
Well, Mary, thank you so much. And like I told the crew earlier today at our morning session, you need to challenge the team to start cloud bursting from Mars down to Azure, right? So that's the next big challenge.
The road to Mars. We're there. All right.
With that,
thank you all.
Thank you, Mary. So with that, Nidhi and Tim, you've already gotten the screen, so at this point you guys can take it away.
Great, thanks, Mark. Mark, I'll just do a quick audio check. You got me okay?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining. As you can tell in the background, it's dark here, which means everyone's home. So the difference between an on-prem conference like this is that A, you have to clean up your own dishes. It's not like they clear them away for you. And when we're at the Hyatt, we don't have to worry about my dog walking in, which also might happen. But other than that, this is hopefully the same opportunity, not just for us to share with you some of the directions where we're headed, but more importantly, for you to provide us direct feedback. We always talk about when we're in this position how much we want to hear directly from our partners and our customers. But unfortunately, given logistics, that's gotten harder to do, to have that direct connection beyond just an email. So please take the opportunity, use the opportunity to use the Q&A piece on the side. And if we can't address the question today, that's why we've allocated some time at the end of the conference that I'll be wrapping up, and we'll make sure that any of those questions that were asked that weren't addressed over the previous 2 days get addressed, and if not, we can reach out to you directly. One of the most important things that we want to cover here today, or that I want to make sure that we express to you, is the very fact that we are having this conference. I got to Microsoft 3 years ago when the company that I was with, Cycle Computing, was acquired by Microsoft, and was acquired because Microsoft was investing and continues to invest in HPC and the capability to provide the total solution, not just some compute that people can leverage. But what's also important about when I got here was that there really wasn't a formalized partner effort on the HPC side. There was, in terms of Microsoft generally, but there was not a formalized effort. And so it's such a great relief to see Mark and Gohar and the other folks who have pulled these together, and last year being the inaugural, and then last year was the first one, and this year is the second one, and there will be a third one. We continue to get better and better, not just at Microsoft, big Microsoft, and partner programs, but really understanding not only what is it like, and what does it mean to support HPC customers, but also to support HPC partners. So let me give you a specific example of that. I'm responsible for the public sector research customers, so high ed, government, and that includes both civilian and defense. And so we're working, as we speak, there's in the U.S. what's called an RFI, or request for information, from the U.S. Department of Defense, and they have essentially said in this document, you don't need to tell us why we should go to cloud. We already know. We need to know how. But what should be important to this specific audience is that, well, two things as part of this response. In this, the government lists out, just out of their program, that they did 5 billion, with a B, 5 billion hours of compute of just unclassified workloads last year. And it's traditionally they are about half classified, half unclassified. So it's safe to assume that the United States Department of Defense, just through that one program, did 10 billion hours of compute last year. But there's another piece of it that should be really important to the people who've made the time to meet with us today, is that when I was running Dell's HPC business, and I ran that business globally for about 8 years, and we would respond to this particular program, we would respond as Dell, and we would say, because the government asked, we can do all of this ourselves. We will do all of this directly. We don't need partners. We will work with some partners if you, the government, need us to, but the way that the RFI was structured, that they wanted us to work with them directly. In this response, one of the primary recommendations that we are making for them to be successful going forward is that they must engage with partners and a series of partners through the ecosystem in order to facilitate their move to cloud, because we don't believe that they, as the customer, could do it themselves, that we as Microsoft can do it ourselves, that there are other people like the people in this audience that have particular skill sets, whether it's software, services, middleware, whatever it is, they're going to be required going forward. So if you take the fact that you've got a need that needs to be filled in a market that's not just growing but exploding, the opportunity is fantastic here. And that it's important to understand that the reason for the next 3 days is not just to say, hey, we're Microsoft and we like partners. It's because we need you as much as you would like to work with us. And so hopefully over the next 3 days, because nobody has figured out all of the things that are required for a successful HPC and AI partner program, that we need the feedback in order to continue us to help form it. And so Mark and Gohar and the other folks on the team are going to be taking furious notes as we go through this to hear the feedback, and that's what makes the feedback so important. So before I introduce Nidhi, there's a fundamental viewpoint that we have with customers, but that also guides the roadmap that we build, and the roadmap for not just the infrastructure, but the software that surrounds it and the services we provide. And that's that cloud is not just to do what people are already doing, but doing it cheaper. That might work for web servers or some other low latency, some other lower level, lower function solution. What we do, is a far more sophisticated challenge to go solve, but more importantly, the customer that we serve has an insatiable appetite for compute, storage, all things that contribute to their research. So the reason that we're here, our mission, is not to help customers do what they're already doing, but do it cheaper. Our job is to help them do what they're unable to do today with the existing tool set they have. And so that shapes how it is that we talk to customers and how we are solution focused and workload led, right? And that it's a very, very important point for us to remember as we start talking about what the bones of Azure are and why it is that we're investing so much in differentiation. So it's a really good segue to turn this over to Nidhi Chappell, because I'd been here about a year when Nidhi arrived, and it was fantastic to have someone with Nidhi's background and the ability to work across the organizations that you need to at Microsoft in order to pull together what previously had been compute and network and storage and all of the pieces that go into it, and pull that into a cohesive solution where each of the feature sets that were being built were complementary. Now, Nidhi is primarily responsible for the compute roadmap, but just know that there's somebody at Microsoft that gets up every day worrying about what the solutions look like that you all need in order to be successful with your customers. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Nidhi, who can walk you through some of where we've come from and some of where we're headed, and then I'll be back in a little while when we circle back around. Nidhi?
Thank you, Tim. Can you confirm you can hear me okay?
I hear you great.
Perfect. Thank you for the introduction. Like Tim said, I'm the head of product for Azure HPC and AI, and I've had the privilege of meeting a lot of you guys last year when we did this face-to-face, and I wouldn't have realized that we would be here online, but let's make the best of it. I would like to spend the next 30 minutes talking to you about the way we look at the opportunity space, whether it is HPC or AI, and what our approach is, and why we think partners like yourself are such an integral part of our go-to-market solution. So I start off with our fundamental mission. As you look at the opportunities and the challenges that the world faces today, as a technology company, it is our responsibility to make sure we can use technology to make the world a better place, either directly working on it or enabling scientists, geophysicists, geneticists to actually make sure we can provide them technology that helps them do breakthrough research. Satya, our CEO, puts out that our mission has always been to empower every person on the planet and every organization to achieve more. And I fundamentally look at that as it's a very HPC-centric mission, because ultimately you're taking technology and using it to solve some of the hardest problems that are possible on the planet. And the approach we have also taken here is very much in an approach that is, I would say, a very winning approach, in the sense that when you look at how Microsoft approaches Azure, Microsoft approaches the solution stack we bring to, we have a full stack solution. We are the only technology company that can integrate into a lot of the existing workflows while bringing intelligent cloud, while bringing intelligent edge into those solutions. In the openness of our architecture, the ability for our stack to provide the architectural consistency with what exists on premise today, whether it is with the IT world or with the other groups that are within a company, allow Microsoft Azure to actually enable innovation faster. And I'll talk a little bit about this later too, but one of the challenges that we hear from our customers is, and Mary mentioned this a little bit earlier too, is that as you look to customers doing migration into the cloud, previously it used to be that HPC would be the last one to migrate. Now we are starting to see conversations that start off with how do I migrate my HPC workloads on the cloud, as the first discussion we have. And after that discussion, we'll have generally customers look to say, how do I migrate the full scope of my workloads onto cloud? And I think this is where our approach to having a full stack really enables us to have a faster migration for all of our end customers. The other benefit of having a full stack solution is the global presence that it enables. So in the past, any of our customers, anybody who's doing research has been confined to the four walls of the data center that they have. But with Microsoft Azure, we now are present in 61 Azure regions, and even that number keeps changing every month. So what that means is, for a data scientist or a geophysicist, you're no longer confined to the boundaries of your data center. With this much region, this much distributed computing available worldwide, you can now actually do compute very close to where the data is, very close to where your teams are, rather than having to worry about the confines of your own data center. And that really has accelerated the pace of innovation, has accelerated the pace at which research is going forward. And we'll talk through a few of these examples going forward too. But I really do see that cloud has enabled HPC AI workloads that are very distributed in nature to become present everywhere and really benefit from the scalability of cloud. If you look at the HPC market, Hyperion would say that any given year, it's roughly a $45 billion market worldwide. What is really interesting is that couple of years ago, almost all of that was on-premise. Again, very heavy spend, bought certain ways by OEMs, Dells, HPEs, Crays of the world were the key participants in this, Fujitsu, Lenovo's. But increasingly over the last few years, we have seen customers really test out cloud. In fact, in the latest surveys that we have done, and this number keeps changing, roughly 50% of our customers that the Hyperion tested have been looking at moving or testing their HPC workloads in the cloud. And I would say we wouldn't have expected that, but the pandemic actually really accelerated that. I think with the global pandemic hitting, people realized, our community realized pretty quickly that the value our community brings to their end customers is not data center management, but is to enable them to have access to technology. So since the pandemic hit, Hyperion has actually noticed that the investments in cloud are growing 2.5 times faster than the investments in the on-premise infrastructure. And I really do think post-COVID too, we will actually see that momentum continuing to shift into the cloud space. And this is where I do think that our approach to cloud, and I've talked about this before, to Azure's approach to cloud actually provides a winning solution. So the way we approach the $45 billion market is, instead of thinking about how can we take our vanilla infrastructure that runs all sorts of workloads and how can we run HPC workloads on it, we actually took a very different approach. Couple of years ago, I would probably say 6 or 7 years ago, Microsoft became very committed to having InfiniBand networks as the backbone for HPC infrastructure. And this purpose-built infrastructure is something that we have invested pretty heavily in the last many years. And we truly believe that that is a big differentiator. In fact, a lot of times I actually talk to my end customers and I mention that, if you were to ever walk into a Azure data center, not that you would be allowed, but let's hypothetically assume if you could open up an Azure data center, you will see that it resembles pretty much a supercomputing site anywhere. It's the same kind of systems, same kind of network topologies, very heavy focus on InfiniBand, because we do believe that from a product point of view, our HPC community deserves the very best, and we have invested significantly in this space. The reason we have invested so significantly in a purpose-built infrastructure is because we have people who have deep knowledge of HPC. Our goal has always been that for a customer or a partner like yourself, when you interact with anybody in Azure for HPC, whether it is in the sales side, pre-sales, post-sales, whether it is in our product team, whether it is in our benchmarking, in our response to RFI, RFPs like Tim was talking about before, or even in the post-sales support, everybody in the pipeline are people who have experience with HPC, understand the workloads very well, and can actually understand where the customer is coming from. So we invest in product, we've invested in people, but also I want to bring out that we have invested heavily in partners. And the reason why we want to do that is we do believe that at the end of the day, we are in service of our customers. We want to make sure that our customers can take their workflows that they have heavily optimized and move it painlessly into the cloud and not have to spend time hand-tuning their workflows. So ultimately, and I know it's a difficult goal, but it's a goal we want to provide to our customers, is we want to be able to provide them the best performance, the right expertise, and be able to work with a large set of partner ecosystem so that we can actually make sure that our customers can have the transition to cloud easily. And in that vein, I actually do want to share some of the investments that we have seen over the last few years. Like Mary was talking about before, Azure has been very committed to the HPC space. In fact, I don't like to brag, but this is something that I do think gives you some data points around how far we have come. If you look at our investments and the results that we have put out, even in the last 2 years, we have been breaking records on scalability and getting the right product out there because we know that this is where our customers really care about. You will never see us talk about a single node or 32 node benchmarking results. And no, in 2019, we were the first one to put scalability results, MPI jobs of 20,000 cores, the first one in the cloud. Then in 2020, we broke that record and we actually started publishing results that were 80,000 core MPI jobs. We can go even bigger than that, but just to give you a comparison, that's 12x better than any other cloud service provider. Again, the reason why we actually do this is because we do think we want to be able to run supercomputing-like workloads in the cloud, and cloud is very ready for that kind of workloads to move. Our customers routinely run hundreds of thousands of cores in their infrastructure, and we want to be able to provide them that capability. Beyond just running the number of scales, we want to make sure we showcase the very best technology. So you will constantly see us publish results on the best in class from AMD, Intel, NVIDIA, Mellanox, and this two of the examples that come to mind is we were the first one to actually have AMD EPYC Rome. We were also the first one to have 200 gig HDR IB working, with adaptive routed. We were even better than some of the supercomputing sites themselves, and they were really surprised when we came out at supercomputing in 2019 that we had 200 gig HDR working. And beyond just the network and showcasing the technology, we are very focused on getting the right file system, getting the right throughput. Again, what our focus will be is at large scale, at supercomputing scales. We want to make sure we have the right infrastructure, whether it is compute, network, storage, and we want to be able to publish results constantly to show that the cloud is very capable of running supercomputing workloads. So that's something I think is something we are very proud of, and our customers are starting to really benefit from this. The other thing that I do want to share is this comes from deep expertise built within our team, the team, the broader HPC team. Here's an example of a few people. This is not even complete by any stretch of imagination, but people who have deep HPC expertise. And folks like these are part of our journey. They are helping us make sure we can do great algorithmic innovations. We can actually make sure we are tuning applications. So working with a lot of your partners like yourself to make sure your stacks run best on our infrastructure. And really, at the end of the day, what we are trying to do is, as our customers, as our combined customers look to move to cloud, we can provide them the expert resolution in time. So the journey from on-premise to cloud is as seamless as possible. I'll pause there for a second. Tim, anything you would like to add here before I talk about the other sections?
Yeah, I think there's a really important manifestation of, if you look at Andy Howard, he supported users at Purdue University and Department of Defense. Evan Burness ran NCSA's private sector program. Ahmed Taha worked at University of Illinois, NCSA, one of the premier CFD folks worldwide. Carl Podesta out of Ireland, same thing. The important thing about having HPC DNA in your organization is, let's take that one example that Nidhi gave about 80,000 cores of WRF. That was a WRF weather model, and that we ran at 80,000 cores. And I had presented that work to the American Meteorological Society. And the point that I made was that at 80,000 cores, to date, that was the biggest that had been run. But I said, look, in 6 months, somebody's going to outdo that. In 8 months, somebody's going to outdo that. Here's the important part about it. That benchmark was run by Cormac Garvey, who was not a meteorologist. And he took off-the-shelf Azure tools. He took a couple of NOAA data sets using the Hurricane Maria models, and he built the model that was capable of running at greater scale than had ever been run before, even on an internal machine. And so the importance was not the number of cores that he ran on. It wasn't 80,000. It was that anyone in the 40,000 member WRF user community was also capable of running at that scale. And so that exemplifies not only what the power of cloud is, but the importance of having people in your organization who are building this out that think like our customers do. That it's not about putting a benchmark out that says, look how big I ran, because everybody's going to say, well, that doesn't do me any good if I can't tell exactly what you did. So when we published that benchmark, we published every parameter that was necessary for somebody to be able to repeat that process and do it themselves. So it's really important as we go forward that when you hear us talking about deploying technology, it's always technology for a reason, not technology for technology's sake. Thanks, Nidhi.
Yeah, no, that's good. Thank you for that. The other thing I was also going to say in the vein is that, when we look at technology deployment, we also think end-to-end. So, I'm not going to drain this slide because we will cover this in some of our later presentations, but what you will see is we look through compute, storage, networking, orchestration, and what we are trying to do is a full stack solution. Ultimately, our goal, like I mentioned before, is that when you have a customer, when our customers, or even your ISV applications are coming onto Azure, we want to certify those applications. We want to make sure that our customers can go from prototyping to production as seamlessly as possible, whether they are completely going cloud native, whether they are trying in a hybrid mode. And what we want to be able to do is for every layer in the application space, we want to make sure that we help orchestrate that, whether it is through enabling a life cycle of management. We want to make sure that they can schedule their jobs correctly. All the right schedulers are supported in Azure, and they're supported at their best performance. So this is where really I call to this community is like, as you look through a partner in cloud with our product, our people, and our focus on partners, I think we have a very unique value proposition on being the lead vehicle on bringing a lot of these workloads onto the cloud that have existed in the domains of supercomputing space before, and cloud was like really not considered a vehicle, but now we have these expertise and these capabilities. Beyond just the capabilities, the other thing I think is even more exciting is our customers are looking to now move into AI, like really looking to see how I can take some of the intelligence through the data I have, through analytics, and build that into the workflows. And this is where I think cloud has a further play, because the amount of data, the scale at which it is being produced globally is pushing the boundaries of how data can be incorporated into our current workflows. And this is where traditional modeling simulation workflows are getting augmented by new discoveries that are happening in neural networks that are now augmenting that. And this convergence of HPC and AI means you need a partner that has expertise in HPC as well as expertise in AI to help you navigate this converged world. And this is where we've taken a very similar approach to what we have taken in Azure HPC, which is we want to provide a full stack solution. We want to make sure that for all of our customers, all of our partners, we can provide tools at a very high level, the services that are full end-to-end, and infrastructure that is supercomputing capable, supercomputing level, so that you can actually provide the right level of service to your end customer. And as I look to this, as a Microsoft team, we also have the privilege that we have a lot of internal research teams, Microsoft research teams, that have been focused on breakthroughs in AI. This is just one example. We have teams that are focused for the last many, many years, and a lot of that research is now available to all of our third-party customers, partners, through products that I'll talk about in a second. But it's just amazing to see the AI breakthroughs that have come through Microsoft research. And this is just a small recap of the breakthroughs. You look at, the number of milestones where AI models have been able to reach human parity, whether it is object recognition, and this comes back to, when you're recognizing something in images, whether geophysicists are looking at that, or natural language processing, natural language understanding. We have now hit human parity in all of these domains from models that are available from Microsoft for all of our customers to use. And to me, that is really exciting, because as a partner, what this means is, as you look into HPC and you look to incorporate AI into it, whether you are looking at it for a very sophisticated customer that is going to be down in the kernels and like really modifying it, or you have a customer or a solution that is at a very high level where you want to have no code or low code kind of an approach to it, at all of these gradients, we provide solution. Our Azure machine learning toolchain actually has the largest number of pre-trained models for vision, speech, language, decisions, recommendation engines that are available for you to just take and optimize it for the data sets. The beauty of all of this is it all runs pretty seamlessly and with high performance on our Azure infrastructure. So what that means for our partners like yourself is, if you have an existing HPC application and you can actually take and you want to augment that with a decision flow, a recommendation engine, we'll actually provide you free models and we'll actually work with you to incorporate that so that you can actually start to have new capabilities that are available for your customers. And just like in HPC space, where we are not going after customers that are looking at a small scale, 1 or 2 nodes, we're actually really going for customers that are looking at scale out, supercomputing scale. Our approach to AI is exactly at that too. We are looking at massively scalable AI supercomputers. And you will see us present some results in the next few quarters that talks about this. And I'm just using this as an example. I think the later decks, later presentations will go into a little bit more detail. But this is just one example where the latest NVIDIA GPUs, A100, we actually have it available where a customer can buy a single GPU node, or you can buy thousands of GPUs in one cluster available to you. So you have the power now or your end customers will have the power now to have a AI supercomputer available on a single click, integrated onto an application to your application, like immediately anywhere in the world. And to me, this is amazing. This is the kind of capability that will open up the forefronts of science like never before. So obviously I'm pretty excited about it. Obviously I'm pretty excited about partnering with this. And before I leave the discussion today, I do think as a partner, we cannot bring these capabilities to our customers. We need your support. My call to action here would be, just like these forums, come explore your ideas with our teams, whether it's our sales teams, whether it's our product team, connect with us. We would love to hear feedback from you. We want to engage you on how you can take your applications, how we can certify your applications onto Azure. And we want to exemplify the capabilities that we have, whether it's on the HPC side or on the AI side. And we actually want to go together to the customers, like the data scientists, the researchers out there, and enable the next forefront of science together by bringing the best of Azure and the best that you have to offer. And I do really think that this is where our scientific community will actually really see a momentous leap forward, because cloud can offer so much. So that's all I had. Anything else you wanted to add to that, Tim?
Yeah, thanks, Nidhi. And there are a couple of points. One, since we are talking to primarily, as this is the second session, primarily folks that are based in Asia, having run global organizations for several years, or at several companies, I know it can sometimes be challenging to understand how to access all of these other tools, all of this great stuff, all these great people that you hear about, and even if it's just something as simple as time zone challenges. I would say that the way that the HPC organization at Microsoft works, we don't draw a lot of lines and distinctions about who does what. It's really just, if somebody has a question, somebody jumps in and answers it. So especially for all of my friends and colleagues in Asia, the best way is just to reach out and ask the question of whoever your Microsoft contact is. And if you don't have a Microsoft contact and you just made your way to this seminar, A, we're happy to have you, but B, I'm an easy person to find. It's just tim.carroll@Microsoft and Nidhi. And so the best way to find out how we can help you and how we can answer anything from questions as general as what the offerings are to as specific as security or data privacy implications, just ask and we'll get you routed to the right person. So that's first and foremost, and hopefully we will continue to reinforce that over the next few days. I'd like to wrap up with an example that I think and hope pulls a lot of what you heard together. Well, there's really two of them. In a moment, I'm going to drop in I think I'm going to be able to drop in the chat. There's a really interesting article last week in a trade periodical called Next Platform. And they're very sophisticated, very technical writers that analyze the space. And Nicole Hemsoth, who's one of the editors there, wrote an article about that they envision people spending $1 billion, billion dollars on a particular AI workflow or algorithm, because those workflows will become as important to industry as a patent on a vacuum cleaner or a jet engine or a medical device. And so where people used to think of software as this tool, that everybody complained that it was too expensive, you still didn't think of it as a huge capital infrastructure the same way that you would with a factory. But actually the return on investment for those for software tools is even higher. So when you look at somebody spending $1 billion on it, a significant element of that is going to be the compute that's required to drive it, but also the tools that help them. And this goes back to what the partner piece of this is that if this is going to become an important tool for both science and industry, time to market, time to answer is going to be important, right? This is a customer set that culturally they prided themselves on do it yourself, build it from scratch, right? It was a badge of honor. That is turning too as this market matures, and that's the opportunity for all of you. And I know that we've got a very diverse group of partners out here in terms of what they offer. But as an example of why what Microsoft's investment are paying off. I was involved in what Mary had referenced, which was that we are now we are the cloud to whom the International Space Station will burst when they have workloads, which include both HPC and analytics workloads, that they will burst back to Azure when they've got a job that's bigger than what they can handle on the on-prem system. We started those discussions when Spaceborne 1 was launched, and it was still on orbit in 2017, and I approached Mark Fernandez, who was the principal investigator, and I said, you know, these are HPC users, regardless of whether they're in orbit or on Earth, they are going to want more compute than you're able to send up, right? And so we've got to respond to the research community. And he said, as a matter of fact, what we're really exploring is that we know that when we put permanent stations either on the moon or Mars, or hopefully both, that they're going to need far more compute than we will ever be able to place there. And the reason that Microsoft was selected as the partner is because they said, if we're going to burst to a single cloud provider, we want to burst to the cloud provider who has the ability to deliver real HPC and real AI to those users. And so, you know, the fact that we are investing is not lost on the market or our partners or anybody else. And so people are understanding that if they're going to invest in developing with one of the cloud providers, they're going to invest with the person who's proven their commitment to this space by the investments they've made and the roadmaps they've got. And that's what Nidhi has really delivered. Nidhi and her team across Microsoft have really delivered for us and put us in a position to do things like International Space Station, of which you will see more. So with that, I think we're about up on the end of time. I've been keeping an eye on the questions, and I think that I think most of the questions have been answered. But if anybody has any other questions that they'd like to ask, we have 2 or 3 minutes to be able to answer them. Now live, or we can circle back and answer them. A moment. There's one other, as we wait for a question, there's one other example example that I want to give as folks are understanding, because as Nidhi and Mary have both alluded to, this is an interesting customer in that sometimes they move very quickly and sometimes they move very slowly. And one of the things that we've noticed in terms of HPC adoption is that oftentimes when we work on a project, we wind up not starting with HPC specifically. It's something that moves into it. And so there's another example that I would give, which is FENMOC, which is the U.S. Navy's surface weather fleet. And it's not that this is necessarily a U.S. example or even a military example, but really more the problem that we had to solve. The challenge is that they had no backup for the system that they were using to do the operational weather. So what really started as an Azure project to build a backup data center in the cloud, which then became, hey, could we do HPC in the cloud as part of this backup? That was what started it. But then what happened was, if you recall, last August there was a rare meteorological phenomenon that we had 2 hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico at the same time. And as it turns out, what happens when you have 2 hurricanes at the same time, the amount of compute that you need in order to generate the forecasts of what those hurricanes will do is not linear. It's actually geometric, because you not only have each hurricane, but then you have the interaction with each other. And so the DoD did not have enough compute to be able to calculate what the what landfall was going to be for those 2 hurricanes simultaneously in their on-prem systems. And so we were able to flip over and use the configurations that we had built as backup, but then scale them because we had the capacity that didn't exist on-prem. And so what we actually did was we had charted what the landfall was going to be and the interaction of those 2 hurricanes. But that was not what we started out to do. But because we were engaged with that customer over time solving this problem, we put ourselves in a position to be able to move quickly and solve an important problem. And that's what we see over and over again, not just in the public sector customers, but in the commercial customers as well, with our oil and gas customers, with EDA, with financial services, with media and entertainment, that oftentimes it's about the engagements that you all have with the customer, that we might be working on one specific project, but we've built such credibility with the customer that when another problem arises somewhere else, they come to us and say, hey, do you think you could X, right? And that's what Microsoft in conjunction with partners, and with both of those opportunities that I described, we had partners involved, but that through that, we're able to do it. And that only happens by building the trust that hopefully starts in this session today, in this session this week. So it doesn't look like we have any other questions that came in, so I look forward to the next few days with you. I look forward to speaking with you again on Thursday. And Nidhi, thanks. A lot. Always a pleasure to spend time with you. And Mark, we'll turn it back to you.
Thank you so much.
Nidhi and Tim, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So now we have Don Woods, who's going to share a little bit of partner sales strategy. I know some folks were asking some questions about kind of how to get engaged more with actual customer engagements, the Microsoft sales team. So Don, having seen this presentation before, he's going to do a fantastic job, I know, really walking everybody through that with a lot of details that I think you guys are looking for. So with that, Mr. Don Woods, you want to take it away?
Hi, it's nice to be here. Thank you for joining. My name is Don Woods. I work in the global ISV group within Microsoft. I've been in the group now for about 8 years, so working very closely with partners over time. And prior to that, I actually worked in our OEM embedded group for many years, and then prior to that, my entire history has really been in solution sales. So I look at things through a lens of the sales side of things, and how do we scale? You know, what are the important things we need to look for? I mean, obviously we have the experts, like we have our global black belts, right? We have Nidhi, we have all these assets around us that can help us. But it's like, okay, but still you have to have a way to scale out. You have to have a way to reach the customers together. And we've always acknowledged the fact, and we will continue to acknowledge the fact, that our partners are really the most important thing to us in how we scale our business at Microsoft. You will probably have seen Satya at an event and have heard him even say this, that we will always be a partner-led company. In fact, the last time he said it, when I recall at Inspire, at that point in time, north or more than 94% of our business goes through our partners. And so that is something that we do. That is something we will continue to do. As you already heard, we're investing a great deal of money across the globe. Let me give you a brief example of that, so that you can have an appreciation for what we're talking about. When Microsoft builds a data center, it costs $500 million. $500 million, $500 million. So it's $500 million. But you don't just build one data center. I don't know if you all know this with us, but you have to build 2 data centers, because you have to have a data center to fail over if something goes wrong in your primary data center. So you actually, every time you deploy, you're deploying $1 billion worth of cloud assets. And then add on top of that all the things that we're investing on the HPC side to have the purpose-built functionality that Nidhi talked about. And you can see that and you probably know this phrase also translates well into other languages. It's put your money where your mouth is. In other words, you can't just say that you're doing things. You have to show people what you're doing. And I think that you can see, based on all of the things that you saw earlier, that we have invested in a lot of assets, and we bring those assets to you as a foundation from which for you to build on. We obviously don't, you don't want to go off and work with commodity. You're not going to make any money with it. The key to what you do is the intellectual property that you bring and that you add on top of it, the ingenuity, the innovation that you bring at scale as well, and all the different things that can be done in all the different industries. And excuse me, so you look at things like all these different areas where HPC can be used, and we know that you have to have a strong partner ecosystem to address these things. But even more than that, we know that we have, like I said, we know we have to provide the foundation under which we can support what you do and to solve customer problems. And so what we're essentially doing here is we look at the digital transformation of these different industries, what's possible, and what we're doing. The strategic opportunity is enormous overall. And obviously what we're trying to do is we're tailoring those solutions as we talked about. We want to build customer trust, which is essential, and maintain it. Add additional audiences and create customer value. And so, like I said, we can't do any of those things without our partners. And so I just want to make sure that you understand our commitment to our partner programs, and we'll talk a little bit about those later on. Now, some of you may not know who Robert Noyce was. Robert Noyce was a co-founder of Intel Corporation. And I wanted to go ahead and pull this out because I always thought this quote was appropriate, particularly in this presentation, where knowledge is power and knowledge shared is power multiplied. And the reason that I bring that up is it's important to know what the combination between what we're providing you and your intellectual property does together. That's what brings together the value proposition. We can put all this fantastic hardware underneath, do all these fantastic high-speed interoperable, with GPUs and so on and so forth. But we can't make that. We can't bring that to life without the solutions that you bring on top of that. And as I said, we acknowledge that. Even so much so, when I look at things from a sales perspective, and like I said, I've been in sales most of my career, I have a tendency to look through this lens. And what I show you this slide because when I consolidate the things that Microsoft is doing in its platform with the most performant HPC virtual machines, like with our HB series, HBD2 and our, and obviously HC, InfiniBand, having the broadest GPU portfolio, the largest compliance portfolio of any cloud, the largest global footprint, and then obviously per second billing. But I look at those things collectively, and then I look at our competitors, and I say to you, our partner community, why would you even consider doing anything on our competitors' clouds? Because we're the ones that can bring all these things to you, and when you go look at our competitors, you're going to be missing some things. And there's no reason for you to miss those things. So from a performant infrastructure standpoint, I'll stick with the sales side of things again, and look at it from this perspective and say, having all of these things in close formation are really what makes us different than our competition. If you're just looking for one particular aspect and you're not looking for more things collectively and what we can bring to the party to help you build more valuable assets in your intellectual property, I understand. But when you want to be able to combine these different elements and really surpass what your competitors are doing and bringing digital transformation to your customers, which is the goal of what we all want to do here, I think that it's worthy of saying that truly we believe we have the absolute best cloud HPC infrastructure for you to build upon. And of course, I talked about the largest compliant portfolio, and these things are worldwide, right? I mean, you've got compliance, in different parts of the world, different things. We invest, again, a lot of money and resources in making sure that we have these certifications, so that when you bring in your products and your technology onto our platform, we already are solving a lot of these issues when it comes to compliance. I want to talk about the true HPC in the cloud. So we talked a little bit about, you have performance-tuned CPUs, BIOSes, GPUs, VMs, and on and on and on. But again, Azure is the only cloud provider with these different things that we mentioned to you, like the InfiniBand, the NVIDIA grid licensing, supporting Windows and Linux, having multiple deployment options. And then the one that I really wanted to focus on with you is engineering in and pricing of Azure HPC that can often deliver price performance comparable to on-premise bare metal, which is collectively our largest competitor. I can assure you, the last thing that any of the hardware OEMs want to talk about is what you can do in the cloud. It's not in their best interests. They want to move hardware. They want to move things on premise, and naturally that's the business that they're in. But again, when you look back at the ramifications of doing that and not considering how the cloud basically unshackles you from so many things that can occur when you select an on-premise only approach, to me it's not sensible. Let's look at this for a moment. So when I want to drill down into this area of competing against on-premise, certainly I appreciate, we appreciate the fact that companies have made enormous investments already on their hardware. So trying to go in and have a conversation with a customer about displacing their hardware and putting things in the cloud, I think you're going to miss the fact that they're going to object. I mean, the CFO and other parts of the people who have made investments in this hardware are still going to want to utilize to the extent that they can that hardware, because that's an investment they want to amortize. But the key conversation going into these customers is what can you do in a hybrid scenario? And so I would propose to you that going in and having that conversation with what can be done from a hybrid perspective can be a Trojan horse, so that you can land and expand that conversation, so that the next time they are faced with a CapEx versus OpEx scenario on whether they want to continue to purchase hardware or whether they want to purchase more assets in the cloud, you have brought them all the information that they need to make an informed decision, and why they're obviously going to want to put that in the cloud. So some of the things that I listed here for you: average utilization affects hardware costs. And the key point that I want to make here is that with Azure HPC, you only pay for the cores you actually use. Of course, that's a motherhood and apple pie clouds benefit, but still it remains the case. The opportunity costs, there are two large ones. You have inefficient engineers and delayed time to market. And what I mean by that is anytime the engineers are having to wait for their jobs to run because they're waiting in line in a queue or whatever the case may be, and they can go off and maybe do something else productive, but there will be times when you start adding up these different delays and these different wait times with the engineering. You add that up over a 1-year period and you start to figure out what the costs are associated with that, and it can start to become alarming. So the point I want to make there is with Azure HPC, queuing time drops to minutes. And time is money. And so that's a very important consideration. Upgrade cycle considerations. With Azure HPC, customers can use the latest hardware. So again, when that hardware becomes available, Microsoft buys it, we deploy it in the data centers, and it's there and it's available. Once again, when companies are buying hardware for on-premise, their typical cycle time for amortization of those, depreciation of those is 3 to 5 years. And so they have to make a decision during the course between those 3 and 5 years. Do I do hardware upgrades? Do I, they have to make all these decisions upon how they're going to want to approach this. And so once again, we have an opportunity because more often than not, we're going to be up to date on the different kinds of technologies that are available in the cloud for them to leverage. Looking at new hardware lead times, I think that becomes obvious, the amount of time you have to wait for the purchases of these things. Scaling matters, the key metrics to reducing runtime. With Azure HPC, engineers can choose the optimal core count, the flexibilities, the scale up and down as circumstances dictate. They can make price performance decisions and trade-offs that you can't make if you've got a fixed hardware platform. And last but not least, IT typically doesn't consider the full cost of their on-premises hardware. And I'll give you an example. Typically when we talk about cents per core hour, that on-prem typically is 2 cents per core hour. Well, okay, but did that factor in the service of the hardware, the support of the hardware, the people, the resources that have to maintain that hardware? No. You start adding all those things up and you find that it's not 2 cents per core hour. It winds up being a bit higher, and of course that's going to vary from customer to customer. So I hesitate to go beyond that, but simply to say, just taking the hardware cost by itself and doing that math, as a salesperson, I want to make sure that I have a fair playing field, and make certain that there are no hidden costs that aren't being exposed when we do these cost calculations. Now, the other aspect that I wanted to talk to you about is how we prioritize things at Microsoft. And so I'm going to give you a glimpse into our priorities in HPC from a sales perspective. We want to make sure that we're discussing the role HPC plays in your solutions running in Azure. Our salespeople will never be experts at your solution, nor should they be. The key is for them to have assets that they can draw upon, like our global black belt community with HPC, where our sellers can hear about or understand, hey, there's something going on with HPC here. And so they go and they reach out to their Azure specialist, who may reach out to their and embed it a bit further, and then they reach out to the HPC global black belt and say, hey, I think we've got something here, let's look at it. they come in and start looking through it to see, okay, what kind of an opportunity do we really have here? And that's a typical process that our field sellers will use in order to get to, is there something real here? And then I'll talk a little bit later about what they go about to finding the solutions, your solutions, in order to address those customer needs. So addressing customer HPC business outcomes, obviously we want to make sure that we do that. Integrating HPC into our joint account plans. And so our salespeople, our global black belts in unison with our field, always have these things are compensated. Our field, our field sellers are also compensated on, part of their compensation is Azure consumption via a third party from our partners. And so we incent them to make sure that they're engaged with our partners. They can't make their full potential on their goals if they don't have a certain percentage of that revenue that's coming from our partner solutions in their customers. So we continually drive them to be reaching out to our partner ecosystem when it comes to that. They're not just going in and offering first-party products as we did in the past. We're much more focused on making sure that we're supporting that ecosystem in their compensation. Enhancing HPC pipeline and performance management, and then driving account penetration and cross-industry scenarios for HPC. So that is a responsibility that our field sellers have in the grand scheme of things. And now the other thing that we did, and many of you know this, that about 5 years ago we realigned our sales organizations so to be in line with industries. We wanted to be able to have a greater expertise, and when we were going to talking to customers in a given industry, and be more adept in having those business conversations with them. Not so much as to the solution piece in and of itself, but being able to have a conversation about what it is they're trying to do in their digital transformation. And then from there, looking and saying, okay, what solutions do we have in our partner ecosystem that we can bring in to fulfill that? So we created what we call these industry priority scenarios. You'll also hear that the acronym IPS. And what that simply means is we break these things down. These are the top industry priority scenarios that we are focused on at this time. So retail, media communications, manufacturing, government, healthcare, financial services, automotive, and energy. And within each of those boxes, I just put a couple quick things where HPC operates there. So truly, HPC is cross industry. It spans these different industries, and so we know that there's opportunity in any one of them. And we have field sellers now that are aligned, and we have industry groups at Microsoft that are focused on these different industries. And even within those, we make sure that the industry experts within those teams are familiar with what is occurring in the HPC side of things, because it is such an integral part and as I said, crosses all of these industry priority scenarios. And then you look at the shared commitment to growth that we have It goes back to what we talk about, where we don't make any money unless you make money. And what I mean by that is, when you sell your solutions and you're running on our platforms, obviously then we're also making money. So it's in our best interest to make certain that our partner ecosystem is flourishing and making money. And so several years ago, one of the things that we thought about was, how can we help our partners in more of a sell with motion, or a co-sell motion, if you will, to see if we can't help drive business success together. And so we came up with the whole notion of a co-sell program. We got it on its feet, we launched it, we've refined it over the last few years. Our competitors now are seeing what's happening there, and they're starting to have similar programs that they're trying to spin up. The big difference, obviously, though, is that we have enterprise and sellers, and also sellers in the mid-market all over the world already. And we've had relationships with those customers for many, many years. And this is what we're tapping into with the whole co-sell motion. Now, of the numbers that you see in front of you, and which are impressive in and of themselves, the one I want you to focus on is the lower left corner where it says 3.5x. What we're talking about there is what we have seen in terms of the increase in deal velocity. In other words, how much faster are sales occurring when Microsoft is working with you versus when you're doing it on your own. And what we have found overall in the analysis that we've done over the last 2 years is that it's about 3.5 times faster, because when your salespeople go in with our salespeople and they sit in front of the customer has a full view of not only what you're bringing to the party, but what we bring to the party underneath, and can answer all questions related not only to your solution, which your sellers do, but we can also answer all the questions, anything that pertains to Azure, which is an important part of that conversation as well. So direct customer co-sell is accomplished in a few ways. First is that your co-sell journey begins when you publish something, whether you publish it in one of our marketplaces, whether it's AppSource, if it's a line of business application, or you put it in the Azure Marketplace because it's an IT infrastructure solution, or if it's a service provider related product. Co-sell engagement best practices, I wanted to make sure just to give you a quick rundown on this. So if you're not already, you want to become a member of the partner network. You will then want to use the tools that we provide to publish your solution into AppSource. And there are a couple different ways you can actually deploy those. One is like Contact Me, there's Try Me. If you want to have, if you're able to encapsulate your software to do like a mini POC that somebody could upload and run and see what your product looks like. And then last but not least, we also have a third type, which is called a transactable solution, where in fact you can have customers buy your solution and use it right from our marketplace. And then we also have IP co-sell ready status, which is something that obviously there are some requirements there to be a part of that. I'll explain a little more of that. Sharing sales opportunities by registering them in this Partner Center tool that I mentioned, which I'll cover. a minute. And if the customer is a Microsoft managed account, and we accept and you register that lead in Partner Center and it's accepted by one of our sellers, then this whole co-sell motion begins, where you can get in contact, where your salespeople and ours can get in contact with each other, have a conversation about, hey, what's going on with the customer, where are you seeing the opportunity, or where might there be an opportunity. Where can we go talk to the customer together? I just put this here because I thought it's just a great thing to have. You know, what are the key questions to make sure that our joint sellers are answering when they go into any kind of a situation? We want to make sure that there are some key questions here that are being asked of the customer, so that we can really have a true appreciation for what problems we're trying to solve, and then be able to espouse the customer value or the value proposition in a way that it speaks the same language as the problems that the customer is facing. So as I was talking about, if you're not already, you can join the Microsoft Partner Network right online. It gives you access to this Partner Center tool once you've joined, and this is the tool where you can do everything within it. You can control CSP, your MPN subscriptions, your referrals, which is the opportunity sharing portion, incentives, which have a lot of different marketing GTMs and whatnot that are available, and then there's app source publishing. So this is the area of the tool where you can do that publishing into the marketplace. And then once it's published, obviously it's visible worldwide. Customers can see it anywhere in the world. We give you the opportunity to, when you publish that solution, to be able to specify a description of the product, what markets it sells into. I'll tell you a little bit more about that specifically here in a minute. Looking at the marketplaces, I wanted to give you some additional numbers so that you could see the kind of results that we're seeing. We're seeing, 3.2 million unique visitors per month. There's roughly $1 billion in partner influence revenue, and so I just wanted to give you an idea of the magnitude of some of these numbers because they're impressive. One of the things that, when your solution is published into AppSource, as an example, and let's say that one of our global black belts has been told, hey, by one of our field sellers, hey, we think there's an opportunity here. The global black belt, or even anybody in the Microsoft sales teams, can go into AppSource. We have a section of AppSource that our sellers can see. It's the co-sell portion of the AppSource, and they can drill down into this. They can make selections that you can see on the screen there, that the filters that I selected on, that I wanted Azure, I wanted HPC, I wanted IP co-sell, which simply meant it's a solution that runs in Azure. It's not a service. And I drill in, and what I come up with are 6 results based on all this criteria that I drilled down into. And then I can go into each of those and get additional information. And I'm using an example here of let's say I'm going to drill into this one in the left corner called from Rescale, called ScaleX. And what our field sellers see, or what our global black belts will see, on the left is a key criteria, some of the search criteria that I showed you earlier, with some additional information as well. That's really great for our field sellers and our GBBs to know. And then on the right side, where you can see I say materials provided by the partner, when you go to publish your materials, you can also add collateral when you do that, and it shows up so that our field sellers are able to see it. And you can give them all kinds of information. you can reference architecture diagrams. You can post videos. You can give them a short deck that they can take a quick look through to see how you're pitching your product to the customers. So anyway, it gives them an array of different assets that you decide that you want to provide, that you think are going to be meaningful when they go in to look and overlook what your product capabilities are and determine whether or not it's suitable for what a customer was saying that they're interested in. You'll also notice up near the top there, next to Overview on the right there, it says Contact Us. When you click in on Contact Us, it actually, again, this is something that you fill in and you tell our field sellers, hey, who's my contact in France, or who's your contact in Japan or somewhere in the US. It could be regional or it could be country specific. The key is you're providing a contact name that our salespeople or our global black belts could reach out to so that we can have a conversation with them and determine, hey, we have an opportunity. It looks like it might be something that your product can solve, and bring you into the conversation. But this works both ways too. I don't want to set an incorrect expectation that that's we're out running around trying to do it that way. It is a practice that we do, certainly, but more so it's when you have an opportunity, because you're doing all of your GTN. You've got the pipeline that you're filling up, and you're moving from marketing unqualified leads all the way up to, got to talk to that customer. You want to bring us in early in the process, so that we, like I said, so we can help unify that whole sales conversation. Again, I'll give you an example, a classic example of what happens. You go off, you're talking to all the business folks, and they say, yeah, great, this is good, we want to sign up and do this. And then it's like, well, wait a minute, we got to go talk to IT about this and make sure that they're on board. And everything comes to a screeching halt, or vice versa for that matter. So again, I think it's very beneficial when we're working together, because you bring that OT experience on that side, we bring IT experience and our contacts, and we can blend those together and have a really, really seamless sales experience together. So with that, I wanted to leave you with a few sites that you can go to if you want to learn more about the co-sell program. There's a link here for you. Obviously, you'll be inundated with sites for HPC, but I wanted to have my own. And then last but not least, exploring Azure solutions for your industry. So I appreciate your time. I thank you very much, and we look forward to partnering with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. I really appreciate that. Another great review. So at this point in the agenda, we have a 10-minute break. So I have 6:30 Pacific time, so we'll be back at 6:40 Pacific time. So again, it'll be 10 minutes. So wherever you are in the world, let's meet back at 10 minutes, and then we're going to let some of our GBB leadership team talk to you guys about kind of working together. So it'll be a good event. So see you back in 10 minutes.
เขาด่วนคือเขาบอกว่ามันมีเคสอีกอันหนึ่งที่ตอนแรกที่เราที่บอกที่เช็คโฟล์ที่เราไม่เป็นตอนนี้คือของเขาว่าเหมือนกับรันสเต็ปโฟล์ซ้ำสเต็ปเป็นคอมพิวเป็นซ้ำเขาบอกว่าเท่าที่เขาเทสอะเขาใช้แบ็กอัพเขาคิดว่าดัตต้าเบสมีปัญหาเพราะว่าเขาเอาดัตต้าเบสเขาดิจิตอลขึ้นที่ก้อนจริงเขาที่ก้อนเทสเขาอะไม่เจอปัญหานี้แต่พอเอาแบ็กอัพดัตต้าเบสที่เขาส่งให้เราอะขึ้นมามันจะเจอเรื่องสเต็ปอย่างตอนแรกที่ไม่ได้ส่งให้เขามันจะมีอีกอันนึงที่เป็นหัวข้อมันต้องดูด้านหน้าก็เลยไม่แน่ใจว่าไม่รู้ดัตต้าเบสมีปัญหาอะไรหรือเปล่ามันจะมีเลยที่เขาส่งในด้านหน้าเลยมันจะมีการติดตอนแรกไม่ได้ยังไม่ได้ชี้พอยต์ข้อนี้ให้ต่อเลยพอคิดว่ามันเป็นที่เรื่องโฟล์ของจิตเนี่ยตรงเนี้ยปกติเราต้องมาทำสเต็ปที่นี้แล้วก็คอมพิวต์สเต็ปเดียวปรากฏว่าตอนเนี้ยเนี่ยมันยังซ้ำซึ่งเขาบอกว่าแล้วมันก็ลามไปถึงเขามีแก้แค่ workflow PR นะเขาไม่ได้แก้ S4 หรือ PO ปรากฏว่าตอนนี้มันลามไปถึง PO กับ S4มันทำให้แบบมันวนซ้ำอย่างเงี้ยแล้วกว่าจะมาถึงสเต็ปกับตัวมันก็เลยใช้เวลายิ่งนานเข้าไปอีกเขาบอกว่าน่าจะเป็นที่ดัตต้าเบสที่เขาสังเกตตอนแรกที่อันนี้ยังไม่ส่งให้เขาที่ลองเทสโฟล์ที่ให้ต่อกันที่เราไม่เป็นที่เราลองถ้าสเต็ปเดียวก็คือจบ
Okay. Well, welcome back, everybody. I've got 40 minutes after the hour, so at this point we are going to click on the screen, scroll. We're going to move to a section called Working with Azure, and again, we've recruited a couple of our leadership team from the Azure HPC GBB team, and so with that, I'm hoping I have Greg and Yuki online ready to present. Are you guys there?
Sure. Can you hear me, Mark?
I can hear you just fine, Yuki. Thank you.
Great. Okay,
Greg,
so let me grab the screen.
Perfect.
All right. Hi, everyone. This is Naoyuki Sogai, Azure HPC leader for Asia as part of the global Black Belt team. Today, I'm with Greg from the Americas team to present this session for you for the remainder of 50 minutes. And really appreciate your joining for this session today, as well as for a going session, as well as another session to follow this one. So, to start with, please forgive me about a kind of social distance setup, even with this kind of virtual session. Actually, I'm being in the office in Taipei, Microsoft Taiwan today, to secure the right and the optimal connection for the internet, and I really couldn't adjust the setup of the room to be more closer to the camera. So, I'm a little bit in, distance from the camera, but I definitely am being close with you over the remote session today. So let me jump into the actual session. So let me start with what we are, Azure Global Block Build Team for HPC. We are really the dedicated specialist team for HPC. As its name of Global Block Build says, we are really acting and serving for customer as the global one team, just like we are having this session together with Greg and myself to be part of the entire bigger global block build team. And what are we serving for customers? Definitely, it's about customer success, as specifically written on the slide. Then, what makes the customer success happen or come true? Of course, there can be the wide variety of the enabler for customer success, from the product or talent or industry knowledge, something like that. That said, one of the most critical enabler to us and for the customers is you, partners. That's the reason why we are very, very passionate in the very, very intensely, investing our energy for this kind of opportunity. It's quite unfortunate that we have to do this round in the virtual setup. Some of you might have joined almost 1 year ago. There actually was the physical setup of this event in Bellevue. I myself was there as well, and I really missed that. That said, even during this kind of, a remote requirement environment or situation, still, we can get connected or keep connected like this. And what's more, the opportunity of HPC on cloud or HPC on Azure is even amplifying or accelerating, as the previous speakers, all the previous speakers today have iterated during those sessions. This is a fantastic moment, I would dare to say, to really further enhance the alignment with you all for driving the optimal value of HPC solution for customers mutually. So, let's have a little bit of double click. Of what kind of elements our dedicated HPC team consists of. First, really gonna be the strong capability as well as the knowledge into the differentiated value of HPC on cloud. Many of the previous speakers have already mentioned on this. There has been the long consistent usage of HPC on-premise, which has been great, of course. That said, we are in the situation that we even have the strong traction from the customer side in terms of how they can migrate or how they can modernize their HPC workload onto cloud. As Nidhi said, HPC somehow had been the last workload to move over to cloud because of the data sensitivity or because of the latency or something like that. That said, the sea tide is definitely changing towards more traction on cloud HPC. That definitely is the exact situation where we are. And this is a kind of revisit of the market opportunity. Definitely, HPC entire market opportunity is massive, as massive as 45 billion by 2022. It's gigantic. And what's more, almost half of the customers are showing strong appetite or strong interest or even the actual trial of running those HPC workloads on cloud. This is the moment we definitely should be able to accelerate this momentum with you all to drive this business together for the customers' additional value, which couldn't have been realized only on HPC on-premise. Then, what really makes HPC on cloud relevant to the customer's motivation for doing doing HPC? Customer definitely have some business motivation or some kind of organization motivation first, which happen to be realized by HPC. Then, unless that value really gets realized on cloud, of course, there will be no motivation or no incentive for customers to really do so on cloud. Then, if we have a deeper look into that, there are a few aspects into those. Of course, there will be some kind of business data handling type of motivation. And also there can be the motivation for saving time or money. That said, what we really see the most important is industry scenarios. As Don briefly mentioned before also, there definitely should be specific requirement or motivation from the business side or organization side in each of the key industry or vertical. Then it's definitely critical to align with those industry-oriented motivation, even on cloud, to really drive the consistent value to customers or even advanced value to the customer. Then let's make a step into why Azure on top of why cloud. This is the part we definitely have a strong differentiation. As Nidhi and Tim mentioned, we really have very, very specialized product for enabling HPC on Azure. I really don't have to reiterate all of these. That said, across compute, across networking, across storage, orchestration, and even the AI-enabled intelligence services, we have strong value differentiator or value, accelerator for customers to, really make the most of the value of HPC on cloud by using Azure as a cloud for doing HPC on cloud. And, that is one part of why customers should use Azure as the infrastructure for HPC on cloud. Another part is the strong, strength or capability of Azure itself on its ground. We have the, most massive global coverage in terms of the data center regions across the world. And also, I briefly mentioned earlier in this session, customers really use the data of HPC, which are really, really sensitive for them. Of course, when it comes to somehow privacy-related data or regulation-related data like healthcare or FSI, of course, the data security is very important. But even besides that, let's say manufacturing or let's say automotive, what data they use for the HPC workload is really what enables their competencies in their own businesses, like design of the car, like the efficient, layout of the chips to mitigate the, malfunction because of heat or something like that. It really, enables their core business. So even such kind of even without such kind of regulation or data sensitivity related to privacy, it's quite natural that all those customers really seek for the most secure cloud when it comes to enabling their HPC on cloud. This is exactly the place where Azure is most advanced, we can say. And also, even with the compliance or certification side of aspect, we also have the very strong certification related to privacy or operational quality and so on. So from that perspective, customer can really depend or trust on our cloud as a foundation for enabling their HPC on cloud. Sorry. Hold on a second. I have a little bit of challenge of the slide transition now. Sorry, let me once stop sharing, then come back very soon. Hold on a second, please. I'm working on some adjustment of my setup. Sorry about that. I'm definitely not forgetting this session. Okay. Okay, hope this should work better now. Okay. All right. Okay.
There you
Sorry
go.
about that.
All good.
Yep. Sorry. Okay. Then, how you and we, meaning partners in Microsoft, especially global Blackbelt team, can really take advantage of this opportunity on the customer side or market side, as well as our advantage of our offering. This definitely, comes to these three factors. First, we definitely have a very strong team, as we have been consistently mentioning, to really drive the strong value of the HPC on Azure together with your solutions. And also, it's quite notable that our team really consists of diverse, strong background of wide variety of aspects of industry solutions, which I will mention later. And last but not least, or even most importantly, we as a company, Microsoft, has a strong, powerful scheme for partnership. What Dan mentioned before this part is really around Microsoft's partnership investment, even besides HPC. Microsoft as its core has been driving this, IT business or cloud business as a foundation, or on top of the foundation with partnership. So if, someone here had an opportunity to join supercomputing event back in Denver last year. Unfortunately, last year was a virtual execution, but last year we still had physical execution back in Denver. And if any of you had a chance to attend that, actually Microsoft booth was the one with the most number of partners exhibiting together. That actually is a DNA of Microsoft, not only HPC, but particularly for HPC. So, with these three combination, along with Microsoft team, as well as you all partners, we definitely can jointly grow the opportunity together. Then, let's have a little bit of look into how our team consists of, or who we are. As I briefly mentioned, we really are, coming together with wide variety of background related to HPC. For example, the global black belt team for HPC really have a great coverage across compute, storage, network, or orchestration part. Not only the product is really covering those required or critical enabler for HPC on cloud side. Actually, our members of global black belt team, their background really have strong coverage like those. And also, they have strong background for actual customer side or enterprise side into very specific industry to use HPC as a customer perspective or end user perspective. We do have such a team member within ourselves, and also we also have some members who used to be in the research firm or academia, very specialized for HPC. And also even for the cloud specialty, we do have the strong members also from other cloud hyperscaler like Amazon or Google. We do also have such kind of strong talent. So we really are having very, very strong asset within ourselves to have holistic view of the value enabler for HPC on cloud or HPC on Azure. And again, we are not alone. Yes, global black belt team for HPC has a strong, diverse talent here and there and everywhere. That said, we even have a stronger set of allies or internal partners to work together, like product team, of course, and also the specialized benchmarking team or specialized ecosystem team, as well as the technical support team. We really are coming together as a strong one team or one Microsoft team to really enable the solution for customers along with you all partners. Then, that foundation really consists of global black belt team, which looks like this. As its name speaks, we are having the great coverage across the globe. So, of course, we have coverage for Americas. Of course, we have coverage for EMEA, and of course, we have the coverage for Asia, with strong members also physically spread it around each regions. The members or the speakers which appeared in the audio session today, like Tim, as well as Mark, of course, are part of the America's GBB team, as you see here. And also Greg definitely, as I mentioned, be part of America's team. And also right now, it's really in the midnight, so we don't have anyone joining from the EMEA HPC GBB team for now, though we also have the strong coverage for our EMEA as well. And also, Asia team, Asia time zone, I'm sure some of them are also joining this session along with your partners. We have the strong coverage across these geographies like Japan, Greater China region, India, APAC, as well as Australia, with strongly aligning with key industries like this: automotive, manufacturing, and semicon, EDA, energy, and FSI, and public sector, including healthcare, and media and entertainment. With these strong coverage across key regions as well as key industries, we are really ready and eager to drive further HPC business on Azure with you all. And also, as Tim mentioned earlier today, we have these 3 time zones like this, organizationally though. We are really acting in serving customers as one global team. By doing this setup, there are especially 2 benefits. One, instead of just closing within one region or time zone, we can have even further diverse experience as well as insights to really enhance each other to come out with the very specialized or advanced solution for customer. That's one thing. And second, our critical customers, especially given the this COVID situation, their environment or their requirements for running this kind of HPC workload even more spread it around the globe. One of the case, like some Asian customer or Asian organization really need to work with some other institute in the U.S. for jointly working on COVID action or something like that. Or in order to react to the business pressure, they need to revisit their value chain not only within specific time zone, but by globally to really enhance the additional value with reduced cost or something like that. So in order for us to be able to align with such kind of customer move, to further extend their business domains as well as the value chain across the globe, we believe and we are sure that this kind of one team setup is really beneficial for customers. Then we also believe that applies to you as well. I'm pretty much sure that many of you, or even almost all of you, have some, alignment or allyship or alliance with partners outside your time zone. In such kind of cases, we definitely should be work together within global black belt team to really align with your partners' business global coverage. That also is a key strength for this setup. So wherever needs, whatever customer needs you come up with, you can reach out to any of us, so that we really can work together on the Microsoft side to really come up with the best thing for you to drive the benefit or value of HPC on Azure together. That's how our GBB team looks like. Then let's shift the gear a little bit towards more in the industry side, because as I mentioned, industry solution capability is really the value which customer is seeking to be enhanced on cloud. So this is a kind of holistic view of the massive coverage of the industry scenarios or use cases to be enabled by HPC on Azure. And out of these, today we're going to have a closer look into 9 specific industries for the following part to have further insights to be shared with you. So first, let's get started from life science part. This is what's already shared during Mary's opening part. That said, let me a little bit reiterate that because this is a very, very inspiring case, from our perspective, which was Duke University for splitting the ventilator. And, this actually is a great example of the acceleration of the use case, which had been pretty much, conservative or pretty much, running on-premise only before if we didn't have something like COVID. That said, we are coming up with something like this more and more, and we'll be having more and more. That's the reason why, I wanted to briefly mention onto this. And, if we had enough time, I wish actually, to run the video for this, which is embedded in this slide. Today, to save the time of the remainder part sometime, I just pasted only the link into this slide, which you'll be having as a downloadable later. And it will be helpful, and it will be, recommended or encouraged that you will have a look into this inspiring story once you get that link. Or, even you can go ahead with, searching on the internet for looking for this video by Korean by Duke University and ventilator splitting project or something like that. But the thing is, this is just the beginning. We will be having more and more great cases like this for life science. This is the first example of the key industry insight. And also stepping further into the this life science related part, we also have the strong, phenomena for the traction for genomics part as well. Not only for the COVID, but also for wide variety of motivation, wide variety of research purpose or objectives. This kind of genomics workload is even more increasing and increasing. Even in Asia, we are actually having wide variety of this kind of cases for genomic sequencing or genotyping or such kind of workload across human, non-human, animal, or even crops. It's unfortunate that we really cannot share those names, though. We do have such kind of strong case, and the characteristics of such kind of genomics related workload is really the massive data as well as the massive computation volumes. Like you're seeing on this slide, these are just examples though, like 9 million core hours or 40 exabytes of storage capacity by 2025, which is only within 4 years from now. So this definitely is another great opportunity for cloud in terms of learning HPC to suffice this kind of massive needs for computation as well as storage. And this is one example of the Jude Children's Research Hospital. And, we are, again, having this kind of great example for genomics or DNA-related workload more and more to really take advantage of cloud scale, capacity, as well as a capability. I apologize if you're hearing some background noise. Is it okay so far? Maybe okay. Or I hope it's okay. As I mentioned, I'm being based in Taiwan now. And you know what? There has been something called Lunar New Year or Chinese New Year very recently. And now they are doing the celebration by lion dance, even in the office. So apologize if you're having difficulty in hearing me because of that background noise of the lion dance. Sorry about that. Anyway, let's accelerate the gears towards the later part of the session. Automotive. Apparently automotive is the area, also the area which HPC can really take advantage, especially on the cloud. There are a wide variety of HPC-related workload like Crash or CFD or FEA, MBD, you name it. All these key workload for car design or car development or car engineering really can benefit the value of taking advantage of cloud for HPC, especially when it comes to Azure with something like InfiniBand. All these typical CAE workload really require the embarrassingly tight coupled computation. And that kind of workload really can take benefit of the uniqueness of Azure, even as HPC on cloud workload. And also not only for the simulation part, there are also end-to-end workflow when it comes to car design, so-called pre and post, or even in the CAD workload for designing part. In order to suffice, or in order to make the beneficial value or strong value for those diverse workload in end-to-end workflow, we do have wide variety of VM type or computation type, with InfiniBand or not, or with GPU or not. Customer as well as partners like yourselves can intuitively choose what's the optimal choice for the specific workloads. That definitely is the key strength of Azure as well, to really cover the end-to-end workflow. And a key example, again, is from Europe here, with the approval for sharing the name. That said, there are coming up more and more customers from automotive in Asia as well, to really drive their CA workload on Azure, taking advantage of those benefits, unique benefits on Azure. And another aspect of automotive is about autonomous, like ADAS or AD or AV, you name it. Then the key aspect or attribute of that workload is really around the massiveness of the data. There are a lot of massive number of sensors within the car, and they are really to be processed in a very agile way to really, makes the value of AD and ADAS. And for this part, of course, Azure, the capability of across data, network, computation is really optimal for all this kind of workload for the car OEM perspective, or even the technology provider specific for AD and ADAS. Here are the specific examples for the recent announcement, like Volkswagen or Bosch, who are the typical OEM or component provider for autonomous, for being in the market for a long while. And even besides these players, another aspect of the announcement we made these days, is the investment or alliance with Cruise, jointly with General Motors and Honda. And even besides that, we also had or have been providing some, a specific program called Microsoft for Startups Autonomous Driving. Because, such kind of technology enabler for AD or ADAS tend to also come up with a very, cloud-born new ecosystem. So we are also enhancing the engagement in that aspect as well by providing the Microsoft for Startups program specifically for autonomous driving already for years. So we are expecting more and more to come up from that ecosystem side as well. And manufacturing is somehow similar to the automotive part, pretty much around CAE as well as CAD, such kind of end-to-end workflow. And for this part, we are even extending our capabilities to something like IoT, or even something like digital twin or mixed reality or such kind of workload. So, again, the comprehensive coverage of Azure, even besides the HPC capability part, is really making the strong differentiated value for this area as well. So with that, definitely, likewise with the automotive scenarios, manufacturing customers can also take advantage of, cloud workstation using VDI, as well as cloud rendering, simulation, as well as AI-related workload. using massive strengths of our GPU enabled side of our product. And another aspect of manufacturing definitely is silicon design EDA. I'm sure many of you are very familiar with this kind of trend of even further intensity or density of the silicon designing as well as the development. And for this part, we are very closely engaging with the partners as well as the key customer like TSMC to really drive the innovation of the workload, not only optimizing the workload for running as it was on-premise over to cloud, but also taking advantage of the benefit of cloud. For example, for TSMC, we are really enabling the ecosystem transformation for TSMC as well to jointly provide some kind of open innovation platform so that their extended ecosystem can jointly work on the design innovation of silicon on top of Azure. So we are really looking forward to this kind of industry transformation by taking advantage of the power of cloud as well, rather than moving the workload from on-premise as it is. And a few more industry to cover before handing over to Greg. One is energy part. Key, very representative workloads pretty much around the seismic as well as the reservoir, which also has been very practical in the coming out with the HPC on cloud before. But we are not only focusing the upstream, so per se, in energy side, but also getting into the midstream as well as the downstream part to drive end-to-end innovation of the HPC related workload on top of Azure. That's the key point for energy part. And not only the oil and gas customers shown here from Europe, we also have the strong customer case from Asia as well, which unfortunately we cannot disclose the name at this point, but we are really coming up. We are really looking forward to coming up together more for that part. And another aspect of the energy is renewable energy. Sorry, I was transitioning too fast, like this. And one example is wind turbine, and this definitely is another area we are having strong capability as well as optimization on HPC like WRF workload. We also have a strong use case for WRF, even for the mining industry, to do the post-mining blast simulation in terms of the affection to the climate or weather near the mining site or something like that. So this site also is becoming more and more popular, even in Asia. And another aspect is also pretty much interesting, which is media. This part really accompanies the strength of not only the compute, but also our storage capability. So we really are having strong case, especially in North America side, for rendering capability wins or value enablement for customers, which is also coming to Asia side as well by replicating the initial success case, by taking advantage of a wide variety of VM offering, especially related to GPU ones, shown like this. And another one is retail, which is very intuitive from the data analytics part. With the convergence of HPC and AI, this kind of customer behavior and behavior prediction part is pretty much common use case becoming pretty much common use case over to HPC on cloud as well. And sorry for rushing the latter part because of the time interruption for the slide transition as well as lying down. Sorry about that. And from this part, I would like to hand over to Greg, who is the strongest specialist for FSI even within the Microsoft. So over to you, Greg.
Thanks, Naoki. And good morning, and thank you all for attending. I'm going to share my slides. There's only 5 minutes left in the session, so what I'd like to talk about, I'm going to skip over the financial services piece and just offer that my email address is published here in the slides. If you are in the financial services space and you'd like to understand more fully about how to optimize your solution for our joint customers, we're doing a lot of incredible work across the large and mid-tier banks all across Asia. We've got a great partnership that's building with SAS. There's a member of Naoki's team, Sachin Nagpal, who's just done amazing work. Summary statement with financial services is that all of those organizations have to keep up with regulatory requirements, but more importantly, they're in an environment that is almost 0 to no interest rates, and there's a lot of volatility, and the demand and needs to calculate risk and actuarial risk in the insurance business, those needs are not declining. And the HPC capabilities, the investments we've made, allow for an economic win, and we can offer more scale, results faster, and lower costs than can be done on premises. So this is really an ideal workload to take advantage of the HPC capabilities. I'm going to go into presentation mode very quickly here, and there's 2 slides that we will cover in the last 3 minutes here. Partners are so important, and key takeaways that I wanted to share with you is that the global black belt team is optimized towards our industry. So the expertise, as Naoki was talking about, is so that we can credibly talk to our customers about how they're doing what they're doing on premises today, and then we work to leverage and help them translate. It's the partner community that helps us do this with our mutual client base. The investments that we've made that Nidhi was describing are so strong that your offer, if you have software as a service, your offer for our clients leveraging Azure means that you will have the latest capabilities and the latest technology and things that aren't even available to on-premises customers. It really is about the entire ecosystem, and we want to work together. We want to go win large customers together. We recognize that these things take time, and it's best to be to orchestrate together as we approach these opportunities in the marketplace. We have so many resources for you, for our partner community, and just a couple high-level things here. On the right-hand side are the financial services, autonomous, academic research, energy. These are all videos. These have all been produced within the last 6 months. They're all current. A couple other things to note is the Azure HPC Technical Onboarding Guide. If you just do a search, you'll find it. It's also on azure.com/HPC. This guide was produced by the members of our CAT team. It's about 35 pages in length. It's a great guide to help you understand some of the distinctions of the Azure HPC capabilities and some of the nuances. It's great for our partner community. It's also great for our customer community. In the financial services space, we've created something called the AZ FinSim. There's a video. There's also a GitHub repository. And this is to enable customers to test out and see if they can run some of their own risk models or Monte Carlo simulations at scale with Azure Batch and a Redis cache. And so it's really informative to help people understand how to scale quickly. So tons and tons of resources and just a massive desire to work together on this. I think what you've heard from Naoki about all the use cases and the success we've created very strong momentum, and there's a very strong need in the marketplace. We have all the capabilities to outperform and at a lower cost than what is happening on premises. And so we look forward to really working together as we build this business. So on behalf of Naoki, I want to say thank you. Thank you for joining us this morning or this afternoon. And I'm handing it back to Mark. So thank you.
All right, thanks, Greg. Thanks, Yuki. That was a wonderful segment. I really appreciate that. I know, Yuki, you presented through some unique challenges there, so I certainly appreciate your steadfast resolve to continue to push on. So with that, we're actually, our next series is our friends at AMD. So it's an honor to welcome Kevin and Isidro. So Kevin, Isidro, are you guys out there?
Yes, this is Kevin. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. Thanks, Kevin.
Very good.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you as well. So why don't I pass the baton over to you guys? You can kind of get going and close this out for today. I will circle back for the rest of the folks. I will circle back with a little bit of logistics at the end. And then we'll call to an evening or call to morning. So, Kevin, why don't you take it away?
Very good. Let me start my share here. Okay, I believe you should be seeing the right thing now. So, thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. And as Mark just mentioned, my name is Kevin Mayo, and I'm responsible for the HPC application engineering and solution engineering team at AMD. In my group, we focus on ecosystem partners, and we want to just help ensure that they have real-world applications performing well on AMD EPYC-based processors. So working with cloud and OEM and ISV partners to make that happen. After I spend a few minutes talking about AMD EPYC, that's where I'm focused a bit, and the unique HPC instances available through Azure. You'll also hear from Isidro Gonzalez from our GPU team. And then I believe Lewis Carroll is online. He's a director of our FAE organization, and he's responsible for working very closely with Microsoft to help make these HPC instances what they are today. So very deep knowledge and experienced guy. If you have any questions, please submit those into the chat, and he'd be happy to help get that answer for you. Probably knows it off the cuff. And I'd also like to thank Microsoft for the great partnership that we've enjoyed together and great things we're doing and we'll be doing in the market together going forward. So as I mentioned, I'm currently focused on HPC running on EPYC-based processors, and so therefore the HBV2 instances at Azure is where I'm heavily focused, and then from the NVV4 instance, I believe is the type that Isidro will be focusing on here after I'm finished. However, I also just wanted to highlight that there are several other really good EPYC-based instances out there available on Azure, so I encourage you to take a look at those as well. So taking a quick look at the journey of the EPYC processors in the market, we introduced Naples, the first generation EPYC in 2017. And then in 2019, we introduced a second generation EPYC processor based on the Zen 2 core, and that was codenamed Rome. And then on the horizon is our third generation EPYC processor, codenamed Milan, which will be based on the Zen 3 core. So that's hopefully coming on the horizon here. So what we'll talk about today is HBV2, and that is the Zen 2 Rome, codenamed Rome processor. The instances are based on the Rome processor. So talking about HBV2 for a minute, HBV2 is truly designed to provide that supercomputing level of performance. So you've heard Tim and Needy and others talk about kind of purpose building their instances at Azure to be very good performance, and HBV2 is absolutely no exception to that. From a kind of walking through what makes the performance supercomputing-esque. Starting off, the hypervisor is very, very efficient. It's been tuned to have very small footprint and achieves performance numbers that are very close to bare metal performance. Then from a connectivity standpoint, as mentioned a couple of times, leveraging EPYC's support for PCI Gen 4, the Azure HPV2 instances, I believe Azure's the only provider in the market today offering that 200 gig performance using HDR and InfiniBand, and so this allows very incredible scalability in the cloud. You don't find it anywhere else. Also, HPV2 allocates the entire node to your workload. So there's no noisy neighbors that you have to worry about impacting your performance. When you get a node for HPV2, you get the entire node. Whether you run on all the cores, which are quite a few cores on the node, to get ultimate kind of per node performance, or if you want to run on some portion of the cores in order to try to drive up your per core performance. For example, if you're running a very expensive per core licensed code or something like that, you might want to drive up that efficiency. So either way, you get the entire node, and you get to control over where that performance is going. Also, especially important when you're running per core based license codes is that SMT is disabled by default. So it allows you to get your kind of maximum efficiency per core for those codes than you would otherwise running on multi-threaded instances. And finally, and importantly, kind of the core to cache topology is accurately reflected into the guest. That means the best practices that you've developed running applications on bare metal can now be reused in your HPV2 instances with that accurate reflection of the architecture below. So very nice advantage there. So briefly take a look at some of the competitive landscape here, comparing HPV2 with prior generation instances within Azure, as well as some competitive instances from other providers. You can see some really standout features for HPV2. You see more cores, more memory, significantly more memory bandwidth, which is very important. The interconnect we already talked about, and then some great storage there as well. So I guess, what does this mean for performance for HPV2? So jumping in, looking at a single node performance, so just taking one full instance and looking across the Oracle and AWS 18XL image and the prior HC, you see, and we're using spec 2017 FP rate as the benchmark to show here, but you see very, very exceptional performance. This comes due to EPYC's unique number of cores, memory bandwidth I mentioned, and then also the very large cache size. So all of those things come together. Very balanced processor, has the ability to ingest a lot of data, crank through it quickly, interact with memory, and get the result back out. So very, very good processor, and from a bare metal standpoint, all of that advantage translates directly into the cloud on HPV2. So just great implementation and extremely good per node and per core performance. And if we factor in the dollars, so where you might see in some other instances where you pay per core versus getting the whole node, at HPV2, getting that whole node, you get a very good value in that. So when you're looking at performance per dollar, and not having noisy neighbors, you can drive your core counts down, better utilize your software license, and still be paying the same amount, but not having those noisy neighbors come in as well. So very, very good performance, and then that translates directly to the performance per dollar, which is just as important. So take a minute. I think this was mentioned a few times already, but driving up to that 80,000 core workload using WRF, that I think I guess it was Tim that first mentioned it here today. That was done on HPV2 instances, and again taking advantage of memory bandwidth, IO bandwidth, etc. hitting very exceptional kind of world-class HPC performance using Wharf, getting out to 672 nodes and 80,000 cores. So extremely good performance. On these memory bandwidth bound workloads like Wharf, we actually see, not only do you see that great performance that we saw on the single node, but Wharf, the other CFD codes, some of those heavily memory bandwidth bound applications take advantage of our large cache and actually scale super linearly. So not only do you get that great performance, but as you go up to higher core counts, higher node counts, you get even better performance. So just kind of cache effect of having that large cache. And one other quick example, similar, is getting up to 86,000 processes on NAMD. So also HPV2, Microsoft Azure does work closely with UIUC and has done good work there to get this kind of just amazing scaling on the 20 million cell model of STMV and the 210 million cell model of STMV. So again, very, very good examples of great performance. So looking at where all this fits into the application space of HPC, called out just some of the areas here. So I've already mentioned the CFD workloads, ANSYS, Fluent CFX, OpenFOAM, StarCCM, etc. Extremely good performance there, taking advantage of bandwidth. The FEA explicit workloads also take advantage of that bandwidth. They also really do like the cache size, and so that larger cache drives very good performance. And then the instructions per clock, or just the pure performance of the cores, has a big play there as well. So very, very good explicit performance. And I won't go through all of them here, but molecular dynamics is compute intensive, but also has good I/O requirements, and so that works very well. Quantum chemistry, oil and gas, similar to the CFD, some of those workloads can be very memory bandwidth bound, and so very good scalability there. Weather we've mentioned a couple of times here, and then I think rendering's been mentioned a couple of times as well. So all very, very good workloads. Don't limit it to this list, but this is kind of a nice sweet spot of applications you can go target right off the bat. So I believe with that, I'll again, please ask any questions that you have into the chat, and happy to Louis or I can go on there and answer questions. And feel free to reach out directly if you have any questions or have any challenges using HPV2 or EPIC in general. So happy to help with that. So thank you guys very much. And with that, I'll hand it over to Isidro to talk about NVV4.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm Isidro Gonzalez. I'm in charge of the data center GPU enablement for Azure over at AMD. So I want to tell you a little bit about our strategy and how that strategy combines with the Azure GPU strategy. So one of the things that we are seeing at AMD for GPU-enabled workloads for both computation, visualization, is a lot around VDI, and frankly that all workers are now remote workers who access a desktop. And the modern desktop experience leverages GPU acceleration for the apps. So we've always known this, especially in this sector, for the design teams, the key engineers who are working with those apps. But a key theme that we have seen is one of the things that Yuki mentioned in his presentation, is that the end-to-end workflows from within the same customer starts perhaps with analysis and then high-end visualization, but then it goes down to different kinds of users. So they really all have a need for GPU acceleration, and keeping those data sets in the cloud brings great efficiencies, great enablement for your customer as they move to cloud. So we see that at AMD and are bringing our CPU and GPU IP to this market. Just to touch on what Kevin mentioned around our CPUs, Azure has chosen those CPUs because of all of the features that they bring to these workloads, so that you can have a balanced VM. So a lot of cores, but also the I/O to manage the data and the inputs and have a good balance design in the VM. And then what my team represents is the GPU technology that goes into these VMs for visualization. In the case of the latest instance, the NVV4, it is our Radeon Instinct MI25 with hardware-based virtualization. So I'll give you more detail about that. But the same as Tim and Yuki and the team were talking about, it's really the customer workload that's important. And if these customers need to do one of these tasks, our goal is to give them a good platform to do this in Azure. So our core IP for visualization is called RDNA, rendering DNA, and it's really processing pixels, processing bits, and it goes anywhere from desktop as a service to the higher end workstation as a service. And if you can do that, then you can also do rendering. And looking further ahead, if you can do rendering in real time, then you get cloud gaming. So these are all workloads that we find customers are interested in providing from the cloud to their employees, and really to enable remote visualization creation and also consumption. Now, the way that the AMD enablement works with the Azure strategy is this. I'm borrowing this slide from Vijay Kanchanahali, who is the program manager at Azure for the visualization GPU programs, to show how they have positioned their VMs. So we have seen that in the high end traditionally, there have been the high end apps for oil and gas, power rendering, those kinds of apps. And that was really the focus of the first generation of the GPUs, the NVV3s. And what we have seen is that there was a need for the high end, but also the rest of the users at a company. So power designers, the power users, but then also the regular desktop users who are consuming that data and processing it and working with it. So that is the sweet spot that the NVV4 is looking to fill. So here's some detail about why the NVV4 instances matter. So what they are designed to do is to bring modern desktops and workstations to the cloud. Excuse me. And by modern desktops, we are talking specifically about the Windows 10 and Office 365 experience that Microsoft is bringing to customers, and all of the benefits that brings with it. The innovation is GPU partitioning. So what that means is that you can take a GPU and split it so that a slice of the GPU can be assigned to a VM to serve the need for that particular user. So you have right sizing. On the right hand side here, you have the 4 different instances that are available under NVV4, everything from a 1 full GPU to a half or a fourth or a 1/8, and it gives you that flexibility. So the kind of hardware virtualization that we are using is based on SRIOV, which is a proven technology. We've applied it to GPUs, but what it does is it gives very predictable performance. So your IT managers know what their users are going to get, and it also provides great isolation. So there's no noisy neighbor problem. Competing companies, competing VMs could be working on the same GPU, and those users will not know that somebody else is sharing that GPU. The isolation also provides security because there is no data sharing from one section to another. The other thing that AMD is providing to Azure is this the workstation DNA of these instances. We're providing workstation class drivers that are certified and are part of these VMs. We're also, it's a cost-free license, so there is no additional cost for the virtualization to get this discrete GPU experience. So something that partners and customers ask us to talk about is how we position the AMD NVB4s versus the NV3s from NVIDIA. And really, it's pretty straightforward in that the NVB3s were targeting the higher end workloads at the time. So your options were to have either a whole GPU or 2 GPUs, and it was really targeted at that higher end. But in the same way that you have a number of users within an organization that have different needs, you want to be able to provide different size VMs for those needs. So that's the goal of the NVB4, is to have a right-sized VM at a better cost for more customers. So as an IT manager and as a consultant, you can now have a choice of VMs to fit that need without having to sacrifice the performance, and really match with the workloads and the applications that are being used for that customer. So on the right-hand side, we have an example of the kinds of applications that are actually certified for Azure, and your customer can be assured that they will get support for these applications when they deploy them in Azure. We have in this presentation some sample videos. They're going to be available for you when you download the presentation. So I just want to highlight for you what you will see. And this is an example of the performance that you would see with a half GPU versus a full GPU. It's a little bit small. I wanted to point out that the 251 is the number of frames that are being rendered in the VM. The 29 is the number of frames that are being provided to the endpoint, past the internet. So we have examples of how this works for different apps. Seeing is believing. We want you to take a look when you get a chance in this presentation. The other thing that the NVB4 is designed to do is the modern desktop. So we also have examples of scalability. So this is an example of up to 8 users sharing the same GPU with Windows 10 multi-user. I'm sorry, this is a Server 19 RDSH, but is an example of what it would look like when you're sharing the GPU with 8 users and still having a heavy graphics load. So there, it's performance and scalability. So take a look at this video when you see this presentation after today. A little bit on technical details. From a visualization point of view, it's a remote workstation point of view, the ecosystem is essentially the VDI infrastructure that you have on-prem. So the remoting partners are very important to us here, and we work with them closely to make sure that their remoting protocols are certified. So Citrix, Teradici, WorkSpot, they have the installed base on-prem. So as these migrations move to the cloud, those are the ones that you want to work with to drive the VDI installations. We're just providing the GPU. I want to point out that the support in the guest OSs, there's Windows 10, but also Windows 10 multi-session, which is only available in Azure. And this quarter we'll be introducing Linux guest OSs for the visualization support. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the certifications. These are the certifications that are required by these partners. So we've done their certifications so that customers can be confident that they're supported and they work well. In a lot of cases, these are the leading applications that the companies are depending on to develop their IP, and then it trickles down from the workstation designers to the power users to the partners, and all of that in the cloud. So that's what we see as the expansion into the cloud using these primary applications. The other question that we get is, where can I get this? So this is as of last week. There are 14 regions available right now. There's 2 in staging. This is the live link to where you can get information, but as a partner or as a customer, what you can do is make the requests to the operations teams at Azure. That's how they're tracking, and that's how they will add capacity. But right now, you can essentially get one of these instances worldwide. Now, we wanted to talk about how we want to work together to drive these sales. Azure and AMD have worked to make the NVD4 ready for expansion for utility, and I wanted to tell you how we're preparing our sales team as they're going talking to the Fortune 5000 as they're selling AMD IP. And what we have seen is that this is an expansion to cloud. It's accelerated by COVID, and there really isn't a specific vertical. So there's opportunity across all the verticals. And what we're finding is that there is every business has a workload or a specific initiative that's going to make the difference for them, and they want to take advantage of what they can do on-prem, but then they want to move to the cloud for the things they cannot do well or that they need. A lot of times they can optimize on their own, but they need partners. They need you to help take them and provide the things that they can do for themselves. So we have been doing things like webinars with partners like WorkSpot with customers to show how that expansion happens. So for our sales team, the revenue opportunity is the attach rate. If there's some infrastructure expansion, they can help sell those servers, but also the devices that are connecting to these cloud instances. That would be an attach for AMD. But for the remoting partners, there's additional seat licenses or all of the additional services that are available, and then that's where we leave and we depend on you as a partner. It's your consultation, your value that we're enabling, and we want to just provide those resources and let you do what you do to get to better revenue for services or managed deployment or managed services or packaged IP. One of the examples that Yuki showed was a company called Jellyfish. They're a video production company who is providing workstations for video production in the cloud. So, the customers are experts in producing movies, content. Everyone's consuming stuff on the net. They just want to work. Jellyfish gives them the workstations they need immediately, and they can start producing. So, a real value for modern production. The other thing that we have seen in terms of opportunities is that the business initiatives from customers are very clear. If they have any of these business priorities, it's an opportunity for cloud expansion. It's actually pretty simple. But if it's expanding, it means that a lot of times they already have a remoting relationship of VDI on-prem solutions. So those partners are very skilled at providing these solutions, and they're very skilled at moving them to the cloud. So those are the key partners to move from on-prem into the cloud, into Azure. And on top of them, they usually have a key application that the customers depend on, and those are the applications that would be driving the usage in the cloud. We're driving our sales force and encouraging you to work with the ecosystem, work with the teams that are already at the customer, and it's really to drive the expansion up into Azure, into the cloud. Now we're doing quite a bit of work to drive awareness and demand, things like the webinars that we've been doing, but also press, webinars, blogs. So if you have opportunities that you would like to talk about or that you would like us to focus on, then please come talk to us, and we can add that to our awareness. We've also created a number of tools for the different industries to guide you as partners into how we can support your solution. So this will be available for you as we move forward. So to close for today, what we would like to ask is, the proof is in the POC. You want to drive POCs because that you find is the best way to close these deals. There's collateral that we've made available for you to recognize this, but also to connect with your Microsoft representative. There's a lot of knowledge and expertise in the rest of the solution that's needed. So we want you to connect with them. As I said, there's a lot of help with the remoting partners who are probably already working with these customers with their on-prem solution and can help to move it to Azure. So this is a reference slide. You can talk to these folks. I know a lot of them well, and they knew VDI and visualization really well. We will be in good hands. One last comment is that we have special interest in customer deals who are interested in providing a case study. You know, the best salesman for another customer is a happy customer. So if you have one of these customers available, we would love to hear about that. So that is all I have for today. Thank you for joining us, and I will give things back to Mark.
Okay. Thank you, Isidro. And thank you, Kevin. I know I really appreciate you guys at this late hour in the stateside, at least. Okay, so we're going to kind of transition. I'm going to share just one last little bit of logistics. I want to kind of get us ready for day 2 tomorrow. So first and foremost, we do have a survey for day 1. Please fill that out when you get a chance. Obviously, would love your feedback, as much of it as we can get. I think it's pretty simple. It shouldn't take more than a minute or two. And then, again, as I alluded to as we started this, we want to make sure everybody is registered for day 2 as well as day 3. It does require separate registration for each day. It's just, quirk in the system. Let's leave it at that. For tomorrow, as I alluded to earlier when we started this session, we've got a little bit more of a deeper dive into the compute hardware, the storage, some of the software efforts that we have going on. It's more of our product management team kind of bringing everybody up to speed. I certainly don't want to scare away any, certainly the technical folks will love it. I don't want to scare away any of the more, partner sales type folks, because it's really good. It won't be too deep, let's put it that way, and we'll be able to cover a lot of ground in a short amount of time. So I think it's going to be a really good day. Last but certainly not least, if you got any inquiries, questions, please send an email to hpcpartnerevents@microsoft.com. I want to thank, first of all the people that spoke today. I want to thank all the people that attended today, and then behind the scenes there is a cast of characters that I just can't give them enough thanks. They've done such a phenomenal job of piecing this together so we can execute such a good event. So with that, I will see you tomorrow. Hopefully all you guys will join us, and we'll have another great day. Thank you. Really appreciate it.